Hi, I'm Jeannie Manchester. I'm here with yogadownload.com, and we are going to be discussing the tailbone for a few minutes in this tutorial. And, well, let's just start. There's a mystery sometimes to our yoga practice, and what do we mean by scoop the tailbone, tuck the tailbone? We can have this kind of extreme, inhale, take the thighs back, exhale, tuck the tail, and not really get into the esoteric piece, which is really, really important to our practice, which is the breath. So let's go over here to Bonard and just look at where the tailbone is. So if we look at here, we have the sacrum, these bones that are fused together at the base of your spine, right here. It's a triangular-like bone. About 4 to 5 fused bones here in the sacrum, and then we have, of course, the tailbone, right? It's actually quite prominent. It also mimics the sacrum. It's a triangular-like bone at the base of your spine. So what is it in yoga practice when your teacher says, okay, now on your exhale, scoop your tailbone, right? So I'm going to show you. On the inhale, our thighs go back and our pelvis rotates anterior, right? Goes back like this. On the exhale, the tailbone and the outer hips actually narrow, and we actually come into what we call the pelvic floor, right? And the pelvic floor is this area right between the pubic bone and the tailbone. There's a hammock of muscles there. If I put my hand in there, this would be the muscles that meet pubic bone and tailbone. Those muscles form a hammock. And on the esoteric level, our breath, right? We take an inhale and then we exhale, and that breath goes all the way down to these muscles. And what happens is when the breath hits the pelvic floor muscles, the levator ani muscles, the energy begins to be wicked up what we call the central channel. And the central channel is a really interesting, fascinating part of our practice. It's said to be held right in front of the spinal column. So if I turn Bonard around, here's the spinal column, and there's an esoteric column of energy that the breath is actually creating. And the tailbone has a lot to do with this esoteric energy we call Kundalini Shakti, the rising of the energy inside us, the piercing of the chakras, all of this stuff we've heard of that's very esoteric. Can't see it, hard to know unless we're connected to our breath. So again, as we inhale, we inflate, and we bring this fullness all the way up to the palate. We exhale all the way down to the pelvic floor, and then what happens is the energy of the pubic bone and the tailbone meet at the end of your exhale, and energy begins to rise. And this is what in the Ashtanga Vinyasa practice we would call bandha, right? So I'm just going to show you on the inhale with my feet wide apart. My thighs go back and I create an anterior tilt to the pelvis. On the exhale, I bring a little bit more posterior, right? My buttocks flesh drops and the sitting bones narrow, right? Right there I feel strength in my abs. My abdominal muscles actually lift on the bottom of the exhale, right? So I can actually feel from pubic bone to navel a very strong upward lift, right? So let's just try this. We'll close our eyes. You're going to bend your knees. Feet are hip-width apart. Knees are right over second, third toes, right? You can just take your hands to your hips, make it easy. And on the inhale, we're going to draw the thighs back and apart. You're going to feel your butt broaden, and you're going to feel your lower back draw in. A little lordosis in the lower back. Now on the exhalation, you're going to put one hand right below your belly button, one hand on your tailbone. On the exhalation, you're going to feel the tailbone drop into the pelvic floor. You see, now I can feel my belly starts to lift. And this is very important when we take a plank position, really any position in yoga, depends on our core engagement. It depends on what we call Uddiyana Bandha and Mula Bandha. So let me explain that, right? So on the exhalation, again, if you take a deep breath in, hand on tailbone, hand on lower belly, exhale, you're going to feel your coccyx drop. So it does literally start to move towards the floor. And then there's an energetic lift. It's called a bandha. It's called Mula Bandha. So from the pelvic floor right up through the lower belly, there's a very strong lift. This is called Uddiyana Bandha. So let's just try it, right? Hands in front of your heart, deep breath in. Exhale, bend your knees like you're coming into chair pose. Inhale, now my butt goes back. Exhale, I anchor the tail. I can feel the lower belly lift, and I root down to rise tall. And just resting on your breath. So just let the breath take the arms to your side. Big breath in. Exhale, bend your knees. Inhaling again. So as I inhale, you can see I've got more of an anterior tilt. Now, as I exhale, I'm going to feel the tailbone move into the pelvic floor. Energetically, I feel the lower belly lift and tone, and then I root to rise, flowing on the breath. So there is a physical component to this, and there's also a very esoteric component, right? You can't really see your breath. You can feel it, though, right? So one more time, hands before your heart. Exhale, bend your knees. Right? Inhale, now you're going to cross your hands and take them to the inner thighs. So it looks like this. Right? I'm going to move my thighs in, back, and apart. Right? So now I've got this nice wide buttocks. Right? Now as I exhale, one hand on the coccyx, the tail, one hand on the lower belly. See, when I exhale, I roll the pelvis back. Now I'm more posterior. Right? I'm right in between. Right? Sweep the arms overhead. Anchor your tail, push down on your exhale, and then rise tall. And then we just float on the breath. So just a couple other poses that we can look at this in, right? So if we come to cat-cow, right, and we start to just feel the juxtaposition of inhale. So on inhalation, I'm going to let the buttocks blossom. So I got my thighs back and apart. We call that inner spiral. Right, the butt is wide, and my belly is actually sagging, right? We don't want that. So on the exhalation, I'm going to curl the tailbone under until I feel that tone in the lower belly. So now I've got some length in the lower back and some tone in the lower back. So how you can gauge that is the belly button draws back towards the spine. Right, so let's try that again. Inhale, there's super duper lordosis in the lower back. We don't want to stay here. It's okay to open this much, but then we want to tone, scooping the tailbone on the exhale. Right? Now this is going to the other extreme. Right? Now I've got so much flexion in the spine, so much extension in the spine on inhale. Right? Exhaling. Right? So ideally, in our poses, we want enough inhalation to open the heart. This is called pranavayu. And enough exhalation to scoop the tailbone under to tone the belly. So go ahead and just take a deep breath in. Take your gaze forward, feel the widening in the pelvis and the hamstrings and the butt. And then exhale. Now we're just dropping the tailbone, the coccyx under. We feel tone in the lower belly. Right there, I'm right in a balanced action. So from here, I'm going to stretch it back to downward facing dog. Just take 5 deep breaths here. So with every exhalation, I can feel more of that toning of the outer hips in. I can feel the coccyx move under and the lower belly lift. Right, so this becomes really important when we come forward and we go to plank position, right? Because often what I see is thighs are sagging, belly button's sagging, and this is miserable, right? So to make this really fun and buoyant and strong, right, we lift the thighs, right? There's my inner spiral. That's inhale. Now exhale, watch the coccyx moves into the pelvic floor, the lower belly lifts and tones, and I find length through the crown and the tail and the heels, right? Very strong, stable. I could be here for quite some time, right? And then we lower all the way down. Inhale, this is another great place to work your coccyx. Right? A little bit more challenging place because we've got big back bend here in the lower back. So I have to work my length through my feet, and then I have to wait on the exhale. Exhale all the way out until I feel that tone in the lower belly. And then again, lifting the belly back to the spine, downward facing dog. So we're just going to try one more pose here, right? So we're going to come to a forward fold, Parsvottanasana. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Now we're going to move to Parivrtta Trikonasana. So traditionally, the hand would come to the outer edge of the foot. But you can also be inside. right? So as I inhale, I find the length in the heart. Now here comes the tailbone. Exhale, I'm gonna take my hand and encourage that outer rotation in the hip and the dropping of the tail. So you can see when the tailbone drops, I get this strong lift and tone to my belly, right? We call that Mula Bandha Uddiyana Bandha, right? And then we can even take it further, reaching the right arm to the sky. So I'm really working the outer right hip back here. A little resistance in my hand. And then exhaling gently and slowly release, right? Inhale, step your left foot forward. Exhale, right? Here's another great place to feel your tailbone. Straighten the arms, lift the lower belly, right? There it is. Inhale, look up. Exhale, step it back, right? Now you can see it from this angle. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Exhale, hand to the baby toe side or inside the foot. Right, now I'm clipping the left hip back, right? So I'm narrowing the pelvic floor on the exhale, lower belly lifts, right? And then I start to move into the full expression of the pose, right? Pressing the hands slightly forward, turning and twisting the belly, right? Gotta clip those hips back, especially left hip. And then exhaling, release. Inhale, step your right foot forward. Exhale, right, all the way to the end of the exhale. This is where we feel the coccyx move into the pelvic floor. Inhale, hands to your hips. Here's another great place to work it. Exhale, tailbone down, right? Lower belly lifting, and then I root to rise. So just those few poses, I hope, give you a sense of not only the anatomical alignment of your coccyx, your tail, but how important it is in relationship to your breath. So remember, right, your exhale governs your tailbone, right? So we've got to find that deep exhale. We call that apanavayu. That gives us tone to the abdomen, right? Protects your lower back, right? So coccyx, remember your breath, have fun, and don't forget to just tune into the very bottom of the exhale. You'll feel the tone in the lower belly, the lift and tone of the abs, and your practice will feel so much better. Your not only your practice, but your back bending, everything will feel better because of the coccyx and your relationship to your breath. So I hope this is helpful. Thanks so much. Namaste.